Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Power Hour of Love. As you guys probably noticed, Charboil is not with us today. He's out enjoying his wonderful happy birthday vacation, man. So wherever you are out there, we wish you the best. But I got to fill in. We got the amazing and talented Kelly Jade. How you doing tonight, Kelly Jade?
I'm doing pretty well, El Bandito.
So we'll be your co-host for this evening. I'm El Bandito. And it's great to have you guys all joining us tonight. If you could take a minute to like and share the video, because that's a lot of what Senior Bowl does, and he's not here. I don't know how to do it. So if you guys don't mind sharing and spreading the love around, that'd be fantastic. But tonight, we have got a super awesome, super fun topic for you guys, because we are continuing the countdown to Infinity War. That's right. We saw the news. You guys heard the news. The Avengers Infinity War date got pushed up to April 27th. How do you feel about that, Kelly Jade?
Yay.
Yay. I know you've been crazy stoked to see the film. You've been going on and on about it. I know you had never seen a Marvel movie when I first met you, and I kind of, hooked you, I think, a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, that's definitely accurate to how this whole thing came about. So I blame you for all the hours I've lost watching movies and reading theories and just generally immersing myself in the fandom.
I have to say, since you're a bit more kind of tech savvy than I am, I've noticed that you've really delved into all of the Instagram and Twitter and what's that, Tumblr and stuff, and you find all these fan theories and things that like just blow my mind. I'm like, I had no idea that was out there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously fan theories are popular for, whatever movie or comic or TV show that you're into. They're out there everywhere. But yeah, if you look on, Twitter, social media, Pinterest, people will put forward their own theories about, the motivations behind the character's actions, what they think is going to happen, their interpretations of what has happened. It's pretty fun to read and pretty interesting to see what theories people come up with.
It's definitely been really cool, the stuff you've sent me. I've been pretty impressed by how deep people are delving into it. Considering they're not going off of comic knowledge a lot of the times. A lot of times it's just people who've only seen the MCU and only seen the movies. But that's what makes the MCU so exciting, is that it's kind of branched off into its own thing now, and it takes a lot of the footholds that the comics had on these characters and really uses them to propel everything that's going on screen to like the next level, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I like how they draw from the comics, but it's not a formula that they're following exactly. They're kind of taking creative liberties and sort of doing their own thing so that the characters have their own sort of MCU identity that may not be exactly what's in the comics, but still something enjoyable.
Right, yeah. So everybody's got something to check out in the MCU, man. It's super great. And while we've been doing this countdown, I know you've seen a couple of them. We started off doing kind of a small segment with Captain America. Then we just blew it up with the big one for Iron Man last month. And we figured we'd keep doing that. And we'd have time to dedicate 1 month to an Avenger, one of the original 6 from the 2012 Avengers movie. And now that they've kind of taken away May from us, we were hoping to squeeze in kind of a 1st of May sort of thing. We thought, hey, man, we better just dive right in. I know that you're a big fan of tonight's Avenger. Do you want to tell them who we're talking about?
We are talking about the God of Thunder, Thor.
Absolutely, guys. We're talking about the mighty Thor, man. We're going to tell you a little bit about his history. We're going to tell you some cool insights about the character. We're going to talk about where he's at in the MCU, where he's going in the MCU, because his character's just been fantastic. I mean, just not to get into it too much, because we're still going to dive into a lot of stuff, but I mean, how do you feel about Thor as a character in the MCU?
I really like the journey that Thor has been on, because the first Thor movie came out, I guess, 8 years ago now. And Thor was very much the sort of the jock type of character who wanted to be king and wanted to go to war and battle for glory and all that kind of stuff. And now toward the where he is now, as we're going into Infinity War, he has matured a lot. He has he's turned down the throne, as we saw in the second Thor movie. He realizes that ruling is not just running into battle and having glorious tales to tell, but it's actually sacrifice and loss and hard decisions and things like that. So he's really developed and has ended up in a completely new place than where he started. And I think that kind of character development is great.
Absolutely. And it's funny because oftentimes we'd be like, oh, that's the human side of the character. That's the character's humanity. And he's an alien, but everything he does and thinks and experiences still ends up being so relatable because it is kind of an everyman sort of problem. So I agree with you. I think his progression has just been beautiful throughout the stories. I want to take a minute to address James Anthony, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. I see you put a comment down here where he says he's got a theory that the X-Men universe will be incorporated by the MCU and they'll do a bunch of flashback sequences featuring that the X-Men were always there, but Professor X is wiping people's minds to kind of keep them in secret. And I have to say, I think that's a really cool theory because that's exactly the story that Brian Michael Bendis told about the character the Sentry. So I don't know if you're familiar with the character the Sentry, but he's kind of like a joke ripoff of Superman that they came up with, and he's like all powerful, powered by the thing of 1,000 suns. But they wanted to like shoehorn him into all of Marvel history, and that's what they did. They made it that a supervillain had brainwashed everyone to forget this guy even existed.
Wow, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, he just turned up on the raft. You know, the raft where they kept the guys at the end of Civil War.
The super secret prison underwater that everyone's seemingly okay with.
Yeah, that's totally fine. You know, I'm sure that's not American soil. No big whoop.
It's in international water, so it's okay.
Well, again, like we said, thank you, James, for that. That's an awesome comment. But we're counting down tonight to Infinity War. And Infinity War is kind of going to be the wrap-up of Phase 1. They keep telling us, you know, it's going to be the end of kind of the Phase 1 stories. I'm really sad to see a lot of the characters go. Hopefully they'll stick around. Maybe a couple of guys will stick around. I'm not sure.
They're all going to stay. Everyone is going to be fine.
I know you're super worried about people getting killed or something in the movie. I don't know. Hopefully nothing that extreme happens, but we'll see. But tonight we're also going to be doing something a little special for the Power Hour, just for us. For all you beautiful people out there, we want to rate and find out who is the Power Hour's most loved Avenger. So what we've been doing is in each of the countdown episodes, we've been asking the viewers to leave a comment, either here on YouTube, you know, on our Facebook page, wherever you want to do it. We should put a poll up for this too, so people could do that. We might end up doing that, but just leave a comment with the word love and something to do with Thor or Captain America or Iron Man, and we count all those votes. And we tally them up with our ratings and totals of the characters. That'll be fine too if you want to send us a video like that. But so yeah, anytime you guys feel like we say something that you're like, oh man, I do love Thor, or oh, that's a good point, or oh, I didn't know that, and you want to put you love Thor, man, throw it down in the comments. We'd love to see it.
I see someone says Bucky, which, yes, 1,000 times yes, Bucky.
All right, no Bucky tonight. But again, we're going to delve right into it. We're going to jump first segment up. We're going to be looking at the history of Thor. Then we may or may not do some news right after that. Maybe we'll see how long it takes, because we've got a like kind of a fun little second segment that's dedicated to Mjolnir, and then we'll do some news. And we've got some great news. I know we've got it in the banner that a police car got stolen and showed up in a most unexpected place. So I know that's a fun story. And we'll get to that in the news a little bit later. But then we're going to wrap it up with our rating and kind of talking about Thor in the MCU and where we think he might be going in Infinity War. But without any further ado, let's jump right into it. We got kind of a cool little bumper for you guys, and I'm so stoked to play it for everybody. So I hope you guys dig it. All right. So hopefully you guys thought that was as cool as I did, because I thought it was pretty cute. But I want to thank Film Learning for doing a tutorial on how to put together some of those elements, man. Those guys are really great. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. But otherwise, let's jump right into the history of Thor. What do you think about that?
That sounds good.
All right. Are you very familiar with the history of Thor?
I am not super familiar with the history of Thor. I know that there's a Norse mythology, and then there's the comic books, and then there's the MCU. So there's different incarnations of Thor, each with kind of different histories and their own sort of thing going on. So there's a lot of information there to unpack. Yeah, definitely. We're going to focus on just a small section of it. We're not going to keep you guys too long with any kind of boring lecture. But I almost forgot. We're giving away a prize tonight, aren't we? Yes, we are. Yes. Tell them what someone's winning out there. Someone is winning the Blu-ray copy of Thor Ragnarok, which comes out on Blu-ray disc tomorrow, March 6th. Absolutely, guys. So what we did was we wanted
all of our subscribers on YouTube to be entered into this. So if you're a subscriber on YouTube as of 9 o'clock earlier, that's kind of what made us a little late today. We were kind of putting together this little bit of a raffle here, and we wanted to do it real nice. So I found a cool little kind of website here for us to use, and let's see if we can unpack it here and see what we got. Bam. All right, so here's our list of entries right there. Everyone's name is on it. You guys can see if you were a subscriber, you're entered on the list. We click the little button here, and we get a winner, guys. It's going to draw one person, and they're going to win a copy of Thor Ragnarok on Blu-ray. We're going to mail it right to you from Amazon, so it's pretty cool. Trek Life 53, that's Justin K out there, man. You join the show. Yeah, congratulations, man. You join the show all the time every week. So it's cool that we can give back to you, man. That's pretty awesome. So look here, we'll give you some celebration there. Man. Why didn't we do that for Charboil, too? It's his birthday, right? So there you go. There's some birthday balloons for you, Senior Boyle. Wherever you at out there, hope you're having fun, man. I think he joined in the comments, actually. Is he hanging out in the comments down there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see him. He's like, Thor, looking good, guys. What's up? All right. Anyways, Trek Life 53, Justin K, congratulations, buddy. We'll get in touch with you about an address we can ship that to you for a little bit later after the show. But let's get into the history of Thor. What do you think about that?
Sounds good.
All right, where our story begins way back in 1962. That's August of 1962. I think that may have been a minute or two before you were born, huh?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit? Okay. Let's take a look at what we got. We've got Journey into Mystery, History, number 83. Now, this was a book that was out for 10 years, and they were publishing comics under the title Journey into Mystery. And it's an anthology book, you know, so every issue was different. And then, you know, a couple of wacky guys, you might know them, Stan Lee and his brother Larry Lieber. They decided to go ahead and go with Thor, right? And they came up with the idea, and, they came up with the idea of doing a godlike hero who was larger than life and super impressive and super awesome and could have just crazy powers. And, you know, when you hear Stan Lee talk about it, he oftentimes says that they had done the Hulk, you know, they had done a Spider-Man, you know, they'd done these amazing characters who were larger than life and super strong, and they're like, where do we go from here? And Stan Lee's like, well, the guy's going to have to practically be a god to be any better than anybody we've made before.
Wait a minute. That's something.
So he said he searched around, and, you know, hey, Roman gods, Greek gods kind of been done to death, but he liked Thor, and he liked the idea of Thor, and the fact that he had a hammer, he said he thought was going to really look great on the page, you know? So they came up with the idea. Of course, they turned to the legendary Jack King Kirby, man. This guy is just amazing. Always working. You never find a photo of this dude where he's not working. He's a champ. But he actually drew the entire issues for Thor. You know, he did Journey into Mystery number 83. He did the whole thing. It's actually one of the best examples if you just want to compare the work of Jack Kirby and his style and what he really brought to the table. Because we can see here, he really did a lot with what they call motion lines, you know, and you can see in the image how he's twirling around the hammer and it shows where it was. And, you know, when he's flying through the air, he gets those transition lines, you know. So he was really bringing this into kind of American comics because this has kind of been around in Japanese stuff. But also, too, one thing that he really did, and if you look at these scenes, you can tell he puts you in the action, you know, like that hammer's coming at you. You know, it's not flying off to an enemy somewhere that's off panel or something, you know, it's flying at you, at the reader. So it was always very engaging. And then the very next panel is like Thor's perspective, you know, of the hammer throwing. So he's putting you in Thor's place, you know, so really cool stuff that Kirby was bringing to the table. It's why the guy was called the King, man. He's a legend.
Is he still around doing comics?
Jack Kirby, he passed away a while ago. He would have been well over 100 by now. So he was very old at the time, yeah. But a lot of people think that Thor was kind of their answer to Superman in the fact that oftentimes you'll hear, like, you know, the Injustice video game is a good example. Injustice is subtitled Gods Among Us, you know, that they talk about Wonder Woman and Superman as though they were gods among us. So Marvel really brought a God among us idea to the forefront in Thor. Mm-hmm. Not only because he's literally a god, unlike the others. But he had an alter ego. And his alter ego was a human guy that he would spend most of his time as being a human.
Oh.
Right? So originally, he was Dr. Donald Blake.
That name sounds familiar.
Now, the idea behind Donald Blake was, and it was a little hard to tell whether or not this was retconned later or what, but Thor was cast out for being too arrogant and made mortal and forgot everything about being Thor and was just Dr. Donald Blake until he found his staff, which was secretly Mjolnir in disguise. And then when he found it, because he's kind of drawn to it, they're reconnected, and then boom, he becomes Thor, and he's like, holy crap, yeah, I'm super awesome. And
interesting.
Hijinks ensue.
I can imagine that guy's life where just one day you're just walking along, minding your own business, and then suddenly you remember you're a god. Like, man, why can't that happen to me? All I do is remember that I forgot to change the laundry.
Well, you did mention that the name sounds familiar, and I thought it was great in the films that they did take a moment. I'm sure every woman out there was super paying attention during this scene, but if you notice his little name tag there, it actually says Donald Blake MD. And she refers to it being an ex-boyfriend or something of hers, and it was just a great nod to put in the film for Donald Blake, and it was great that something had been in place just from the get-go. And that's something I love about each one of these countdowns that we do. We're realizing that so much of the Marvel mythos was like day one in the book, and that's just great. It goes to show you that, like, if something's worked for 50, 60 years, don't try to rewrite it, and I think that's a problem you see with a lot of adaptations of both books and other comics, that people want to write their own story or reinterpret the character. And it's like, if people liked it, there's a reason, just stick with it.
Right.
Now, I know you're a big book fan, so you probably can attest to the fact that sometimes just interpret it the way it should be, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, lots of people might have missed that on closer inspection later in the film, when they give him a fake ID, they actually give him the name Donald Blake, right? I'm sure a lot of people caught that, but I didn't even notice this till I found this image online. But down here, you can see where it's the hologram on his ID says Excelsior, which is how Stan Lee used to sign off on comic letters in the back of books.
Cool.
When he would respond to fans, he would be like, blah, 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 whatever, thanks, true believer, Excelsior. So that was a cool little sneak.
That's awesome. Wow. Very cool.
It just goes to show the
Very
attention.
astute to notice that.
Yeah, and it goes to show the attention to detail that the creators are putting into the films. So very cool stuff there. But you can't talk about things being there from the beginning without talking about Mjolnir, without talking about Meow Meow, without talking about the hammer. What do you think of Thor's hammer?
I think Thor's hammer is great. I think that Thor has a very special bond with his hammer. They've been through a lot together. Mjolnir's always there for him when he needs him. And yeah.
I think my favorite thing is that when he wants it, it comes to him.
Yes.
Which, like so many men know, that's like never the case when you need a tool. It's like you cannot find it anywhere. I shouldn't say men. I'm sure women know that too. But
I wouldn't.
My first thought was that men know that about their girl. It's like, come here. Come here.
Are you comparing men's girls to tools?
I kind of was. And I started to recant. And then I was like, oh, go for it. And now I realized why I should have recant. So let's keep going. But anyways, we see the oath, which I wanted to point out. This is Journey into Mystery number 83. This is a panel directly from it, and it's showing the oath on the side of Mjolnir. And it's funny because it's not written in the films on the side of it. It's just shown as like I think I actually have a photo of it here. Yes, it's shown as sort of a Treyarch. And it was like a weird sound. I was like, what is that? It's you rubbing your feet together over there. It's okay. I was like, oh my God, something's on fire. But it has a Treyarch, but what Odin says is exactly the speech from the original comic. It's always been the same, so I think that's really great to go back to the original comic and find, bam, the verbatim, inscription on the edge of the hammer. So very cool stuff there. And I don't think anything else shares as much screen time with Chris Hemsworth as Mjolnir.
It's kind of his constant companion where you don't see him without it. I mean, there's a scene in, I think it's the Dark World, where they're trying to escape somewhere to go like rescue Jane or whatever, and his priorities are Jane and then Mjolnir and then everything else. Like, is to make sure he's got it, make sure that it's there for him.
He's like, no, that's my stuff, man. I need it, bro. But so much of the mythos was set up right from the get-go and very early on, right? So if we continue from there, we can find that issue number 84 of Journey into Mystery features the first appearance of Jane Foster. So here she is here, originally a nurse who Donald Blake hires to help him with his medical stuff and his practice and stuff like that. So, really interesting again to see how they're just plucking these original characters, even though in all the years that I read comics through the 90s and 2000s and 80s, I never heard of Jane Foster. She just wasn't a prominent character because he had just gone on so many different directions, and it stopped being Donald Blake sometime in the mid 70s, early 80s. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, going back and doing the research and seeing again how they're just matching it up to the original stuff is really great. And again, she's not a love interest. She's just, his nurse or whatever. So, unlike Pepper Potts, who was like day one Tony Stark's love interest. So it's pretty cool. It's an interesting dynamic. It's an interesting way to, update the character and really, empower women in the new character. I'm, of course, talking about Natalie Portman and her portrayal of Jane Foster, both in Thor and in Thor the Dark World, where she really it's kind of kick-ass in the alien world.
Yeah, and it's really, what's interesting about her is that she's not like a physical warrior, or anything like that. So she doesn't really take part in the fighting, but when it comes down to her scientific knowledge, she uses that to figure out a solution to save the day. And so it's interesting to see her I guess her scientific brains contrasting with Thor's brawn and kind of how they bring that dynamic together to save the day. So I think that's a really cool kind of contrasting
it's a good partnership.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
a good partnership. But it's the same dynamic that he practically has with Loki.
Right.
Being that his brother is not anywhere near as fiercely powerful as he is, but very, very skilled in both science and magic.
Yeah. Magic is just science we don't understand.
Exactly. Well put. But Jane, we haven't seen her in a long time. She wasn't in Ragnarok, she wasn't in the Avengers, wasn't in Age of Ultron or anything like that. I know some people are kind of like, okay, don't need her. We got a Valkyrie now, forget it. But I do think there's a lot of people out there, especially comic readers, who'd really like to see Natalie Portman come back and continue to portray Jane Foster, especially if Thor doesn't make it through Infinity War, for one simple reason, and that's because Jane Foster currently is Thor in comics.
Oh,
wields Mjolnir and kicks some serious ass.
Wow. I would like to see that on screen, but not at the cost of Thor.
I hear you, but maybe he can just take on a sort of Odin role. I mean, he's got the eye patch now, so
that's true. Yeah,
maybe he can just chill back at the castle and let her go kick some butt. But yeah, apparently there's some great mythos behind how Jane is able to wield the hammer and everything like that. But we'll let you guys read it because it's out now, man. Go check it out. All right, moving on from there. We were just talking about him, man. The very next issue, 85. Has the first appearance of Loki.
Loki, God of Mischief.
Now, I know he's kind of a fan favorite for a lot of people. They love Tom Hiddleston. He's fantastic. He's super good. And he comes off with that air of sort of mischief, but with so much humanity. Like, it's so well written that he has so much heart.
I was reading just kind of like behind the scenes with Tom Hiddleston and things. And there's a moment in the first Thor movie when it's toward the end where he and Thor are facing off on the Bifrost and everything, and the original script had called for Loki to be kind of taunting Thor and laughing, sort of being like the cackling anti-hero villain.
Yeah.
And Tom Hiddleston was like, no, this is an emotional thing. This is let's make it deeper than that. And he's actually crying in the scene as he's taunting Thor, and there's so much pain and humanity and conflict there that how can you not feel for him even as he's doing these terrible things. So I mean, it's definitely a combination of the actor's portrayal and the material that there's just so much there to explore with the character.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great for a director and a creative team to be able to recognize when someone brings something good to the table and then go for it, because I hate to bring it up, but that's when you watch the Wonder Woman movie, you remember there's a scene with the two bad guys and they just threw like some smoke grenade into the room and the two of them were just laughing like little children while they just killed like 40 people. And it's supposed to like illustrate that they're just crazy bad guys, but you're like, that just seems like 1960s Batman and Robin kind of.
No offense to the Wonder Woman fans, I do not remember that scene at all.
Well, yeah.
I only saw it once though. So.
But in contrasting the two scenes, I think it just goes to show how much smarter and how much more complex they wanted to get with one piece versus the other, and really show some complexity and depth, which I think is what's helped maintain Loki as a character through all the films and why we're so excited to see what side he plays for in Infinity War.
Right,
because
exactly.
He could very much bow to Thanos' will and be totally scared. But even if he did, I have a feeling he'd be trying to help his brother.
I think so, because he, like Thor, Loki has developed too, because he goes from the kind of fallen prince to the absolute villain who wants to take over the world to kind of the anti-hero to Thor's hero, where he's more chaotic neutral in this newest movie as opposed to evil. And I think that with this latest movie, it really strengthens the bond between the brothers because they have to. Nothing brings two siblings together than ganging up on the third sibling. So, and I think that having that much more that bigger threat in Hela kind of brings the two brothers together and changes Loki and reminds him that yes, he wants to be with Thor. He wants to, help his brother. He doesn't want them to part ways.
Yeah.
I would hate to see that go away in Infinity War. I'm very concerned about this.
Now, like I said, there's so much complexity built in there. I'm sure we'll continue to see that complexity flesh out between both of the films. But as far as historically, Loki was kind of that cackling in the background jackass villain. So you can see him here, But he did always have the horns and the goofy green costume. So, I mean, you want to talk about taking it from page to screen, man. You can't do much better than that.
That's true. I don't really get the horns. I think they're kind of silly looking, but I do like the costume that he has in the movies, and I like that they kind of update it with each movie and make it so that it fits his character well.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I always thought, reading comics and playing video games and stuff growing up, that I was like, dude, his horns are so dumb. Like, they're so impractical. Like, what are you ever going to do with something like that,
Although, it's interesting that he kind of uses them as a weapon.
Yeah. Well, when you see him in the film, I'm like, dude, that shit looks cool. Like they just somehow made it look very much like how I would say like a moose or a buck's horns would really be.
Something intimidating.
Yeah, exactly. And something that looked like they were dangerous. Right. In comics, in that kind of bright, goofy yellow, I never really conceived them as gold or any type of metal. I thought of them more like kind of jester's horns or something like that. But when you see them there, you're like, dude, like that's just impressive and kind of weird and kind of dangerous, and I don't know what you're doing.
But it works.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that is basically what I'm saying. It's intimidating. So this was the only picture I could find of him with his horns where it was like from a still from the movie without like getting a still from the movie, and it kind of annoyed me because I don't know what he's doing with his hand here. I think he was like casting a spell or something, but
maybe
I didn't like this pose.
He's always up to it's like he's getting ready to dab, looks like.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I couldn't think of the name of it, but yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I think we should do that for Loki. You want to do it? I don't know. We're too old for that. Sorry, guys.
And we just need to move past that completely embarrassing moment.
So I'm sure someone will tag it in the comments on YouTube where it's like the exact time where you both just... So also in issue number 85 is the first appearance of Loki. Not Loki, Odin. Of course Loki, yes, but it's Loki with Odin as he returns home and he's like, oh, yes, father. He's like, you'll remain here. No more fooling around in Midgard and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. I did want to mention one other thing real quick about Loki. I almost forgot, but there's actually a Golden Age comic that is owned by Marvel that features a character named Loki that they do consider kind of the predecessor to his appearance here. He is completely redrawn, his character's reimagined and everything like that. But for some reason, the Marvel Wiki, the Marvel Universe, does recognize Venus number 6 as the first appearance of Loki, which I thought was pretty weird. But
that's interesting.
Hey, for all you fans out there who want the real deal history, bro, there you go.
I do know some things that are not the MCU. I know that Loki goes through several kind of incarnations because I know that he dies and is reincarnated at one point as a kid, like Kid Loki, and I think there's another one where he's like sort of like an Avenger, but for Asgard, like sort of on the side of good. So
the agent of Asgard.
Yeah, the agent of Asgard. So it seems like there's a lot of different roles that he can play and play well. So I don't know. That's cool.
It is. It's very interesting. And again, it gives hope to where they can go in the films for Loki rather than just continuing to be a bad guy and fall in the same trap all the time.
Right.
So, I mean, they've already showed him grow. So let's continue to keep doing that and keep rocking it. So, yeah, Odin right there from the very beginning. I mean, obviously, these are all Norse mythological characters. It wasn't like brain surgery to come up with them. But their interpretations in the Marvel Universe and how they're represented were all first illustrated in these very early books. And they continue to resonate with the films today, which I think is really cool. And again, this is Journey into Mystery number 85. If we jump ahead a little bit to Sir Anthony Hopkins playing Odin.
Yes.
Perfect choice, amazing actor. One of my favorite scenes, by the way, since I saw this photo, it reminded me. You remember when he's first chastising Thor in the first movie and he's telling him, oh, you're arrogant and you left everything open to war, blah, blah, blah. And Loki tries to say something to help,
and he's just,
Yeah, he just yells. He's like, "Arr!"
And the look on his face is like, did you just...
Yeah, that totally unscripted. Like Anthony Hopkins just did that because he was like, don't interrupt me, dude. And I'm like, that is so like, what,
that's great.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal actor right there. Good job.
They just keep going with it too. Loki's like,
yeah, he's like, that's such a dad thing, though. You know, it's such a dad thing where you don't want to curse at your kid.
Right?
You know,
It's just like,
you just censor yourself and sound like an idiot. Will you get your just? So anyways, we jump ahead just a little bit to Journey into Mystery number 118. We have the first appearance of the Destroyer. Do you remember the Destroyer?
I do remember the Destroyer.
Okay,
yes.
cool. I think I asked you about that a couple weeks ago, and you were like, I have no idea.
I've brushed up since then.
Okay.
In preparation for tonight.
Well, very good. I appreciate that. So yeah, this is only a year or so later they first introduced the Destroyer. A lot of you beautiful people watching at home probably recognize him more like this in kind of his current incarnation. This is very much what he looks like in comics today. I should have snagged a picture of it, but it's so close to this. I'm like, yeah, that. So again, really laying that groundwork very early on of having all of these great characters and the Destroyer being something that was reoccurring, like you said, almost an agent of Asgard. And the way that they utilized him in the film and kind of brought him to life and gave him such purpose and everything like that, it was just great, It was really great to see him portrayed and him brought to life, and it kind of fit in with the whole story, showed Thor's strength without being the climax of the film, which was really great. So,
yeah, definitely. I think that was done really well too, and it was that moment too that Thor had to sacrifice himself, and that he was willing to do that even after such a short time on Earth. So
learn that humility and. Yeah, and do it in the face of sort of an automaton, something that had no other goal than just to be there to kill Thor, which it made so much sense to be like, yes, that would be the thing I'd have to lay down for, because there's no way to talk him out of it or anything. Right. So it's just great plot device, way to put something in there like that. I thought that was really excellently done. I think we're going to skip back just a little bit, just a little bit, because I noticed something when I was doing the history here. And in Journey into Mystery number 114 had the first appearance of this guy, the Absorbing Man. Do you see him there with his ball and chain? Do you recognize this guy?
Isn't he an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
He absolutely is.
What is it, Creel?
Yes,
Yeah,
Crusher Creel.
yeah.
You know, here he is in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Kind of, you know, I don't...
He is of ambiguous...
allegiance?
morals, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he just showed back up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last Friday, so a little bit of a spoiler there, but it wasn't a big deal. He was in there for 2 seconds. But I just thought that was so cool, looking through here, that his first appearance and the origin of his powers and abilities is actually that Loki gave him the abilities to absorb things the way that he does in order to battle Thor. And he actually grabs Mjolnir and absorbs, like, what Mjolnir is to be able to try to pick it up. And he never does. Thor just hammers him, you know? Literally.
Hammers him. I see what you did there.
But it was a really cool story, and considering how relevant it was, I was like, bam, that's I gotta throw that in there a little bit. That's pretty cute. So anyways, moving on from there, Thor continues his run in Journey into Mystery all the way up until issue number 125, the final issue of the book. And it's kind of sad, kind of a bummer to see the title come to an end. But, you know, you shouldn't shed any tears for Thor because they really just renamed it, and issue number 126 was just titled The Mighty Thor, and they ditched the anthology, The Journey into Mystery. Thor was literally featured in every single issue from 83 to 125, and they were like, let's just call it The Mighty Thor. So there is no Mighty Thor number 1 for you guys to buy from the 60s. Your first Mighty Thor is going to be number 126, which actually came out shortly after an annual that introduced Hercules as the Greek kind of, you know, hero and antithesis to Thor, and then he's featured again in 126. So pretty interesting stuff, but I think that'll about wrap up kind of our history lesson. What do you think? You feel thoroughly historified over there?
I feel thoroughly historically prepped for the discussion of Thor in the MCU, yes. Awesome.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll go ahead and call that a finito for that one. You want to do the news now, or you want to talk about the hammer?
Let's talk about the hammer.
Let's talk about the hammer.
It's a pretty special hammer.
Sounds good to me. I dig this because this is going to be a fun little piece that we put together here. So, yes, this is Us Power Love Live. So, you want to read it?
I can't really quite see it. Whoever holds the... No, you have to read it.
All right, I'll read it. I'm sorry. It's too far away. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Yes.
So totally awesome. And what we were kind of talking about a week or so ago, and kind of what prompted us to really do this episode tonight, was the fact that, how about Dando the Destroyer? Chucky Bucks, Mr. Fusion down there, you nut. That just made me laugh. But... we were talking about all of the times that people have tried to pick up Thor's hammer, who's worthy, who's not worthy. And I knew that there were some people out in the mythos of comic land that maybe Kelly Jade had not been so familiar with. And I thought it'd be fun if I kind of dug some of these cats out and we explored all the different people who tried to see if they were worthy or actually were worthy to wield Mjolnir.
All right.
And worthy of the power of Thor. So right off the bat, can you name one person that can actually wield Mjolnir?
Jane Foster.
Okay. All right. I'll narrow it down. In the MCU.
Captain America.
Oh, he didn't pick it up.
It wobbled, though. I think he faked that he couldn't pick it up because he didn't want to embarrass Thor. But it's not.
He was like, I don't want to make him look bad.
Listen, it's not whoever is sort of worthy. It'll wobble a little bit. It's either or.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, most people absolutely, completely overlook the first entry on my list here.
Oh, the Vision.
Odin.
Oh, Odin. I'll just take my leave now.
No, it's funny because it's obvious, right? You're like, that's obvious, you know? So, but yeah, so Odin obviously can wield Mjolnir. Even after he puts the inscription on it, he's still holding it, you know? And then he chucks it out into Midgard for it to just land in the middle of the desert a million miles away from where Thor was. So I don't know what Heimdall was doing there.
I think I want to protest that Odin is worthy of the the power of Thor because he may be a great king, but he's not such a great parent.
Oh, I think he's all right. What are you saying? Because he screwed up Loki, man? Stepkids are hard.
First of all, I have a lot to say about this, but no, he's very tough on them. He's very he raises them both to think that they're going to be kings, and then he kind of casts Thor out and casts Loki out, and they've got issues, which is in large part thanks to Odin's A+ parenting.
They're called learning moments. You're supposed to have those with your kids, you know.
Throwing them in the dungeon is a learning moment.
Hey, he tried to kill a planet. You're like, I don't even really like that planet much. It's just the one I live on. Meh. All right. So anyways, moving on from there, like I said, if we're going to look at the MCU, I think everyone's kind of fan favorite was watching the Hulk try to pick it up. I mean, this was such a good moment. What do you think of this moment in the Avengers?
I think it's awesome because it really proves that it's not strength, that it's not physical strength. It's really emotional strength, if you will. So
sure,
yeah,
the worthiness, you know, because when they show his feet just crushing into the ground because he's pulling on it so hard, and you realize like, dude, if that was anything natural, like the Hulk would mad be picking that up right now.
Right, exactly. Kind of a reminder. It's just something that is otherworldly and not for us mere mortals to have.
Not to neglect the fact that moments earlier when Thor just puts his hand out and it rips through like 10 walls in the helicarrier just to get to him. You're like, this is an impressive piece of work right here, you know? But yeah, so the Hulk couldn't pick it up, man. And he couldn't do it. And then probably the second biggest MCU moment where you wanted to see what would happen was right there, man.
Yeah, see? It wobbled. It wobbled.
Yeah, it's what you said. It wobbled a little bit, and I think nothing proves that more than, Thor's face.
Right?
When he's like,
Mjolnir, what are you doing? No.
I know, he's like, you're supposed to be my tool. my tool, you know? So
I think that if anyone who is mortal would be worthy, it would be Captain America, because he's Captain America.
Yeah, I would think so too. I think a lot of fans out there were really surprised by this moment, if only because in comics he absolutely does wield Mjolnir.
Oh.
You know, this is him during his time. That's very reminiscent to what's going on right now, where series of events, he's kind of given up the mantle of Captain America. He's kind of underground. He just goes by the Captain. That's why his outfit and stuff looks a little different there. But he's attacked by all these goons, and Thor's hammer gets thrown on the ground, and he goes to pick it up, and everyone mobs on top of him, and he just stands up, Paya, and blows it up like that. Wow. And even Thor is like, wow, dude, like, I always thought you were a little iffy, but you're really a good dude, bro.
You're worthy.
Yeah. So I was surprised that he couldn't actually pick it up in the movie. Like you said, it's kind of a setup for what happens with the Vision later. So hopefully everyone's caught up on Ultron. That's a few years old now,
I saw this great fan theory that of a missed opportunity in that movie where they said the after credit scene or something should have been Stan Lee in a cameo, like as a janitor or something. Just kind of he's in there alone and he's minding his own business, and he just casually lifts up the hammer to wipe under it.
I would have liked to see them in the elevator with it to see if it would go up and down.
The elevator's not worthy.
But the you told me a great fan theory that you read online about why Captain America couldn't actually pick it up in that scene. Why don't you tell everyone that? Because that was really great.
The fan theory that I read was that it's the context matters of when you're trying to lift it, and that because it would have been an ego boost for Captain America to have been able to lift it, because they're showing off for each other, they're joking around and things like that. But if it had been a situation where he needed to save someone's life, he probably would have been able to pick it up. So
much like this moment.
Right, exactly. So it's worthiness, and it's for the right reasons too.
Yeah, in the moment.
Mjolnir knows.
Mjolnir knows. We'll get shirts with that made up. But yeah, I thought that was such a great theory. When you told me that, that was something I'd never thought of, but it's very true. That he's doing that just to show off, kind of. And I'm sure he doesn't really care one way or the other. But,
right, but
it's in a showy, boastful moment. So you would be immediately dubbed unworthy because you're just trying to look like cool.
Exactly. Yeah, he knows your intentions are not pure.
So I like that. But do you think that there are and outside of the MCU, now that we've seen here that in comics, comic characters can wield Mjolnir, do you think there's any comic characters that you'd be like, oh, this so-and-so would totally?
I don't know.
I know, I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Batman probably. I mean, I know he's another franchise, but
well, Batman's kind of a jerk. He's branding people and shoots guys with guns now.
He stands up for justice for the little guy.
So you foregoed Superman and went straight to Batman, like the Truth, Justice, and American Way guy.
No.
He's not interested. He's not played by a good-looking enough actor for you, isn't
Henry
it?
Cavill is very good looking.
Yeah, but his upper lip looks all weird all the time. You remember that?
They had to Photoshop his mustache.
I know, I'm just clowning. Well, let's take a look at some other comic book people who tried to lift Mjolnir and see how they did. Here we have.
Is this Loki?
Here we have Loki.
Cool. He is not worthy.
Now, this actually stems from what you were saying earlier, the Agents of Asgard.
Okay.
Right, where in this moment, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, has actually cast an inversion spell to change people's alignment. So if you're an evil person, you turn good, and if you're a good person, you turn evil. So the idea being that Loki was bad enough that when they flipped the script, it made him so good that he could actually wield Mjolnir, And as soon as the spell wears off, there's supposed to be a great moment where he's like, Wakong. But I thought you'd get a kick out of Loki throwing down the hammer.
Yeah. I mean, he's that. I'm curious though about what the end goal would be to make the good guys bad. Though that might be a topic for another time. But that's an interesting kind of.
Yeah, you'll have to read the book.
Yeah,
to read the comic. All right, what do you think about Storm from the X-Men?
I don't know too much about Storm, but she seems like she's on the side of good and wants to help everybody and whatnot. So I mean, I believe it, I guess.
Well, this one's a very interesting kind of setup in the comics because Storm is actually being mind controlled by Loki to be evil and fight Thor. So in a moment of desperation to try to smash the object that's controlling her, and she's kind of getting her wits about her, she grabs Mjolnir to do it. But Thor reaches down and grabs the end of the hammer with her, and the two of them together use it to smash it. So it's kind of I don't really think that was Storm.
Her hand was on it, so
Yeah, that's kind of the old the movie Mystery Men, where they're like, I saw you like lift a city bus once, and you're like, well, I really just pushed it, and the guy kind of had his foot on the pedal at the time.
Yeah.
But it was a feat to amaze nonetheless.
Of course.
All right, but let's see what our next entry can do. Let's see if our next entry is worthy. What do you think?
Roll the dice. I don't know.
All right, let's see. We've got Awesome Andy, who I'm sure you're not familiar with whatsoever, but I'll give you a quick bit of history on. He's actually an automaton. He's a robotic man.
Okay.
Much, I would say, in the same vein as Vision, who was built for evil. But he also has sort of this absorbing man-like powers where he can absorb different things from people, different powers and abilities. It's almost more like Rogue than Absorbing Man, though. He can literally steal your mutant powers or special abilities. And he uses this on Thor, and everyone kind of believes that, oh, Andy stole his worthiness. Like that was part of his power, was his good nature and everything that makes him worthy. And it actually gives Awesome Andy like a big push in the right direction to completely gain sentience, and he becomes his own life form, and from here on out in the comics is known as Awesome Andy. Before that, he has some evil, horrible robot bad guy name, but he calls himself Awesome Andy, and he becomes a clerk at a law firm.
As you do.
Yeah, when you're an automaton block-headed man who can't speak. But it's all in the She-Hulk books, which are usually considered kind of campy and almost on the borderline of continuity. But he's holding it. He's got it right.
Hey,
Thor's like, oh my God.
Awesome Andy is worthy.
So whether or not he stole the worthiness or if robots can just pick it up because they don't count as people, I guess we'll find out in Infinity War.
I guess so.
We'll see what happens. Well, I guess not.
No.
I guess not. But
Spoiler alert.
yeah. Talking about people that are actually worthy, we couldn't forget to mention Beta Ray Bill. You know, he showed up in comics about 337 for Thor, and he is an alien cyborg goat man who finds Thor's hammer in a time when Thor is out of commission, and he finds Donald Blake's staff, turns into Thor. He gets the powers of Thor, and he becomes a Thor. You know, and he runs as Thor in the comics for a short while. There's a number of guys like this. I think there's a guy named Drago. Eric Masterson ends up becoming Thunderstrike and stuff like that. None of them were quite as popular or cool as Beta Ray Bill. So I figured I'd throw him in here just as kind of a nod for you to be like, that's cool as a goat man, Thor.
Hey,
neat. You know? But again, if you want to talk about people that are worthy to wield the hammer, what do you think about Superman? You think he's worthy?
I mean, I guess he would have to be. He's Superman. His whole shtick is kind of that he's truth, justice, in the American way. So, yeah, I guess.
Well, this clip comes actually from a comic, right? This was a crossover between Marvel and DC that they did a number of years ago. I think maybe in the early 2000s, late 90s. And in it, Captain America gives him his shield. And Thor tells him, I'll let you take this hammer, but I'm going to have Odin take the thing off, the enchantment off first. So he does take the enchantment off in canon in the comic.
So
There's
Superman's
no
not worthy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is we don't know if Superman's worthy or not because he never got the opportunity to pick it up.
I mean, he's pretty, selfless and whatnot. I think he would be, probably.
I think I would feel really bad if Henry Cavill's Superman picked up the hammers. I'd be like, that guy's an ass, bro. He's not nice to people at all. But a Brandon Routh, a Christopher Reeve, a George Reeves.
Tom Welling,
yeah. Or Dean Cain even. I'd throw a Dean Cain. He was super great in Superman.
Why do you hate Henry Cavill?
I don't. Henry Cavill's a great actor. He looks great the part of Superman, but the movies that he's in, his situations are always dicky. Like, he's just kind of a jerk. He never asks if people are okay. He never helps anyone besides the main purpose he's focused on. Like, do you remember the beginning of the Justice League that it's like in the desert and Lois Lane's doing this interview with some people and they realize her cameraman's a CIA agent and they put the gun up to his head and it's in like slow motion and they blow this guy's freaking brains out and you're like, oh my God, that's horrible. And then they turn to Lois and Superman dives in and saves the day. And you're like, dude, he couldn't be there like 30 seconds earlier? Like, even for the script? I don't care if it's a little hokey, but
that's not
geez.
the love of his life, so he just gets a bullet through the brain, I guess.
I suppose, man. But the, hey, Evan Stewart's out there, man. Bishop, what's up? Showing some love for Beta Ray Bill. I know he's a big fan of that guy. And he ends up getting his own hammer. I think the Stormbringer is what they call it. Odin makes it for him. And it's like, you keep being a Thor out in the universe because you bad, dude.
Keep going with your bad self.
Exactly.
Your bad good self.
But anyhow, I agree. I think a comic book version of Superman would absolutely be worthy. I wouldn't feel bad if a comic book or friendlier version of Superman was deemed worthy because I very much equate him to Captain America. As far as her wholesomeness and goodness, but if there was one character in the DCU that we could undeniably say, yes, picks up the hammer, is worthy, who would you think it would be?
Wonder Woman.
Oh.
She's pretty perfect, I think.
Pretty
flawless.
What did Wonder Woman find there? Look at that. Whomsoever be worthy. And yeah, she absolutely picks it up. This is in the 1996 original Marvel DC crossover that they did. It was a huge epic 4-part series. I actually have this. I read it when I was a kid. Lost my marbles, man. Super good. Thor loses the hammer, I believe, during a battle with Shazam. He drops it or something. And Wonder Woman, I think, is fighting Storm. And she picks up the hammer and instantly turns into like a badass like Norse version of herself with armor and everything. And a steel crotch plate, which is weird. I didn't even want to put it in the picture because it was weird. But she has like a steel crotch plate. And I'm just like, whoa. Stormbreaker. All right. Bishop's out there correcting me. Stormbreaker was the name of Beta Ray Bill's hammer. But so yeah, Wonder Woman actually does wield the hammer, is considered worthy in both DC Universe mythos and Marvel Comics
I buy that
mythos.
because she's pretty consistently believing in the good of humanity and
Yes.
fighting for the good of humanity, and her motives are completely selfless. There's no self-gain to anything that she's doing. So I buy that. I believe it.
Yeah, I'm with it too. I've always thought of Wonder Woman as that, like, I have all this love for mankind sort of attitude. I think it's building to that in kind of the new series, you know, or maybe it's like an undertone.
I think that it was
it's not as
kind of
prominent, but
I think it was not quite as subtle as an undertone, but not overdone either.
Sure.
I think that like there were scenes where she's stopping to help like the people in the village,
Yeah.
or she charges into no man's land to try to save the soldiers and things
Right.
like that, and kind of just very very much for the sake of humanity.
yeah, and I think that's why that movie is so much better received than her interpretation in a lot of the other movies, where it's kind of like, what the hell are you doing for like 50 years there? I don't know, but that seems to be a trend with DC movies. You know, your Christian Bale didn't do nothing for 8 years, just grew a gross depression beard.
He was traumatized by losing Rachel and facing the judgment.
Rachel.
He gets a pass.
Whatever, man. He could have had old Selena Kyle there.
He didn't even know her.
Yeah, but who was that? Anne Hathaway. Yeah, she's a babe. Forget about Maggie Gyllenhaal. She's fine.
Well, well, as soon as Anne Hathaway came on the scene, he came back to being Batman. So
Very true. Very true. He was like,
it's
I
not
gotta
his
get
fault. It wasn't 8 years earlier.
it. That she decided to rob him. That's nice. Oh, girl power. Yeah, it's different in the DC universe sometimes.
Everyone knows that Selena Kyle is also of ambiguous morals.
No, definitely. I'm not trying to knock that, but I do want to keep talking about girl power, man, because girls got the power to rock some freaking Mjolnir, man.
Hella.
Now, what'd you think of this hella awesome scene right here?
I see what you did there. I was very impressed and very surprised that happened. And I think that Thor's reaction to this echoed all of our reactions, because here you have this completely evil goddess of death who's just is bringing death and destruction wherever she goes. She wants to destroy everything, and yet she can stop Mjolnir. She can, she has the power. So,
Literally crush it in her hand.
right, so is she worthy, or is she just like super strong?
No, that definitely a good point that we should bring up is I don't at all consider her worthy as much as I do having the ability to create such a weapon, having the know-how, technology, whatever you want to call it, magic, at almost the same level that Odin did. And almost a reason as to why, she serves as kind of the reason why Odin waters it down between, Thor and Loki, assuming that he's giving power to Loki like he does Thor. Neither one of them seems to realize the amount of power that they just inherently have. I mean, Thor obviously discovers it by the end of the film, but
I think that a lot of Loki's power comes from their mother more than Odin. And I did read this theory that she can hold the hammer because she's Odin's daughter, and because it's part of the Odin's bloodline that makes both her and Thor worthy, and we wouldn't know that until now because Loki's not technically of that. So
sure,
the fact that he can't lift it, doesn't necessarily mean. I don't know. I lost where I was going with that. But
no. I get what you're saying.
He's not really related, so yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's literally just the bloodline that makes them able to pick it up.
Right.
But again, then why couldn't Thor pick it up at any point when he was Donald Blake?
That's true.
I mean, he struggles pretty hard to get it up in that shield kind of containment area, and he can't get it up because he's not worthy. So, yeah, we can go back and forth all the time. Are you laughing at the fact that I said he can't get it up? You
didn't hear me say giggity.
All right, I think we should just move on, talk more about girl power over here.
Okay.
All right, Jane Foster. Wield Mjolnir, man. She is the new Thor. You guys read for yourselves what they did to make her worthy. And hey, the amazing Brando out there stopped in to see us tonight, and he says, "Dang, Char, you looking good tonight."
Thanks. I did something different with my hair.
If any of you guys hear the theme song at the beginning of our show or at the end of the show, those are made by the amazing Brando. just spectacular tracks off of his albums, man. You can check him out over on Bandcamp and stuff like that. Or say hi to him. He's in the comments right now. Dude, the guy's the man. He's super great. Thanks for joining us, bud. Hope you like Thor, man. Give us a thumbs up or some love for Thor. So Jane Foster's the new Thor. We'll let you guys read about what she's doing in her comics, man, because they're out right now, out on the press. So all we can say is that she is worthy. She's kicking butt. We hope to see her out there in the MCU, man, maybe making a comeback and kicking some butt. I'd love to see it.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I'd be interested to see where they take that post Ragnarok and post kind of, Jane dumped him, so.
Jane dumped him scenario, right? So that you don't get to lift the hammer, you dump Thor. Get out of here.
You are not worthy. You don't know what you had.
I know that would be my parents' reaction. If it's some girl that dumped me, they're like, no, you can't have his stuff. Get out of here. What's the matter with you? But all right, so that's kind of our take and our look at whomsoever may be worthy. Right, which I thought was a fun little segment there. I know we did leave Division out, but I thought that was a little too on the nose. You guys know what's going on with Division stuff. I thought throwing in Awesome Andy was really going to give you kind of a more informative take on the robot scenario and what may be going on there. But as of right now, what do you think about doing some news?
All right, sounds good.
You want to jump into some news? Let's do it.
Really curious about where that car ended up.
PoDunk News.
All right, so we got some fun little news stories for you guys tonight. Senior Boyle usually does all the work on the news here, so it's going to be a little bit of a lighter news segment. But I do have to say he did send in a lot of stuff, but a lot of it was too much to read, and I didn't feel like doing it. So I'm sure you'll be able to read those stories next week. But we do have a couple of important things going on this week that we just couldn't not mention. That's good English, right?
No, it's not.
Avengers Infinity War has been moved up. We said at the beginning of the show, we can't say it enough. We posted, thanks to Kelly Jade, who sent me the link to it about 15 minutes after the news broke online on Robert Downey Jr. and Marvel Studios' Twitter.
Yeah, that so it's going to be released April 27th in other countries, and Robert Downey Jr. is tweeting to Marvel like, hey, can we get it a little earlier? And they're like, sure. And then they actually moved the date up, so now we get it a week earlier.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. I mean, you can't beat that, and I have to say, as much as I love Robert Downey Jr., don't really think he made it move. I'm guessing they may have had some other motives.
I'm sure
there,
that was in the works for a while, but I actually was reading an article about it, how it's kind of a major power play by Marvel, and they're changing the rules because now there's going to be less competition for them to at the box office the opening weekend. I think now there's like a longer gap between it and the next big blockbuster movie. And kind of, so what is Marvel doing as far as what are they trying to accomplish? I know
it seems like they pushed it back, and now they've given some leeway so that people don't have to rush out to see Deadpool 2. Like they'll have a week or two, and then Deadpool 2 will come out, because otherwise it was going to come out like a week or so after. Now it's got like 3 weeks after, so that's kind of nice. Also, Solo is coming out shortly after that. I think at the end of May or the beginning of June.
Maybe something.
And getting a little bit of distance from that just seems like a good play for Disney all around, to have 3 big movies and kind of space them out a little bit. But again, this may have been something that they just planned all along. With the announce of it being April 27th in a lot of other countries, it could have just been something fun that they were like, hey man, let's really shake stuff up, and this will be really fun. We'll, give it some last minute love. And I think that what happened with the Black Panther and its breakout success really goes to show that a Marvel movie works whatever they want it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that Black Panther really brought in people who may not have been familiar with the MCU or may not have been following it, but who wanted to kind of see what this new movie was about, because it's getting so much hype and because it's being talked about so much. So that brings in a whole new audience.
I have to say, one thing that's funny to me is that I like the date, May 4th, hey, May the 4th be with you. But why isn't Solo coming out on May 4th? Like, you guys blew that one, man.
That's a question for the people at Disney and at Lucasfilm.
But it may sound silly, but I think, like, I'll never forget when people say, like, oh, May 2nd, the first Avengers movie came out, or, May whatever this movie came out. But April just seems like such a weird, like, month to say even. It's April 27th. Seems like such an oddball date to put something. But hey, whatever. I'm going to be there. I'm going to check it out.
People are talking about it, It's, they're hyping it up without having to release a trailer. So that's pretty smart.
No doubt. No doubt that everything that they're doing is probably well calculated and well planned out. But my bottom line is like, hell yeah, a week earlier. I'm not guaranteed a tomorrow every day. So anytime I get something a little sooner, I'll take it.
As long as we make it to April 27th, whatever happens after that, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 2019 would be super to catch the second half of the movie.
There's a second half. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so, just a little bit. But you guys want to know what happened with this cop car out there. I know you guys do, man. So a rookie police officer recently had his car stolen. But to make matters worse, I'm saying worthy too much. I'm saying worthy. To make matters worse, the thief actually used the cop car to go to, if you've been guessing all throughout the show, I'm sure you nailed it, Taco Bell.
I would think Dunkin' Donuts, if anything.
Yeah, right? You get a discount if they think you're a cop. So. But yeah, so the guy heads over to Taco Bell, uses the officer's credit cards, which are in the vehicle, to buy himself food at Taco Bell and to turn around and go and buy merchandise at a local Walmart.
Wow.
So the 21-year-old thief was eventually caught using surveillance camera from the parking garage that the car was stolen from, and was duly apprehended and charged with kind of being a buster right there.
I guess when the craving for Taco Bell strikes, you do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, and I have to say, if I'm ever doing something super illegal that I may get arrested for, I'm not going to gamble on Taco Bell.
Right?
Because if you got to be in that little steel toilet with a lot of other people, if there's any chance I'm ending up there, I'm not gambling on Taco Bell.
Not a lot of foresight here with this kid.
Yeah. But hey, we're 21, man. When you were 21, where were you eating? Taco Bell.
Sure, but I wasn't eating it in a stolen cop car.
Good point. Hey, it's all life perspectives. Everybody's different. It's America's the world's largest melting pot. We just need to melt a little bit. Just like a cheesy gordita crunch melts together.
Taco Bell, by the way, is sponsoring this whole news break.
I wish. Even if they just gave us Choco Tacos. Do they still have those at Taco Bell?
They do not.
Those things were
Don't even ask me how I know immediately the answer to that question.
I think I know why you know immediately the answer to that question.
I have no idea.
But our last story tonight is going to deal with the 90th Academy Awards, man, or the Oscars.
90 years, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy Kimmel had a great opening monologue where he addressed Oscar being 90 years old, that he was like, yeah, he's probably at home watching Fox News right now. Just funny stuff. It was good stuff. There's some clips of it on YouTube if you guys want to check out his monologue. I'm not usually a super fan of Jimmy Kimmel. It was a great monologue. It was a really good opening to the show. I saw a couple other clips throughout the night. It looked like a lot of fun. So I'd really encourage you guys to go and check out some of that. I think it was pretty cool. He had a lot of good points about what's kind of going on in Hollywood, the Me Too stuff and everything like that. So, of course, we support that,
What's Me Too? No, I'm joking. I'm sorry. I'm joking. All this talk about girl power.
I know. I'm trying to be serious and don't get me in trouble. Don't get me in trouble. And you're looking at me like, I'm going to get you in trouble.
We've never talked about this. What are you talking about?
So, okay. Talking about the Oscars, right? Guillermo del Toro won for his film The Shape of Water, which sounded like a fantastically cool movie, but dude, his movies scare the shit out of me sometimes, man. So I didn't go see it, but now I think I'm gonna have to, because
it's an Academy Award winning movie now.
Yeah, and it's not like the usual kind of droll Academy Award winning The King's Speech kind of thing. Seems like weird and kind of boring. This seemed like kind of a fantasy. There's like a fish man in it and a love story and a period piece all kind of mixed together. So
I'm really curious about the fish man.
Yeah, well, did you ever see Hellboy?
I did. No,
Like, you remember
I
the
didn't see
fish?
it, but I kind of know.
You know the fish
what it
guy
is.
in that? Like, that's how the guy
Yeah.
looks in The Shape of Water, sort of. You know, it's like a fish man.
Huh. That's
So,
interesting.
yeah. And like, you know, I think the girl falls in love with him or something. I don't know. We'll have to check it out. That's it. You want to make a pact right here on the Power Hour, and we'll go see it.
No.
All right. What about this one? Jordan Peele and his movie Get Out actually won for Best Original Screenplay. The guy's a comedy writer.
I was really surprised because I love Key and Peele, their skits on Comedy Central, and when I heard he was making a movie, I thought it was going to be a comedy, but apparently it's actually a really heavy movie.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a thriller or a drama.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a horror movie.
I think it's like horror genre, but with like social justice commentary, kind of on like racism and things like that.
Yeah. But I want to know if it constitutes a horror movie. I'm gonna throw it out there right now that you know, Big Bill and Baby Joey, Donnie, the Don, and Terrible Tiffany out there at the Horror Mafia. Man, if you guys could hook me up and let me know whether or not this is a horror movie. I don't want a big spoilerific review. I love your guys' reviews. I listened to the last couple of them. Charlie told me you gave us a shout out, and I was like, I'm going to listen to this. I ended up listening to about 6 or 7 hours in one day of your guys' stuff. It was super great, guys. I really liked it. I was not expecting Baby Joey to be the guy that's like, hey, these guys are great. Their show looks really great. Everything's freaking cool. They throw a lot of crap at you in like an hour and change, you know? And he sounds like the most Italian guy ever. And I'm just like, wow, dude, I would not expect him to be into our show like at all. And understandably so, because there wasn't like, you know, pasta or a bag of donuts or nothing. But no, I loved it, guys. You guys are doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. Really thought it was cool. Let me know about the movie. If it is a horror movie, I'll donate to your Patreon for you guys to watch it. So let me know.
Very cool.
All right. Well, that I think is going to wrap up the news for us tonight. And we're going to call it there with news. And we're going to jump right into talking about Thor and the MCU. We're going to talk about giving him a rating. Like we said earlier, we'd like all of you guys to feel free to put a shout out in the comment that you love Thor. And we will definitely count your listener score towards our final rating of who the Power Hour of Love's most loved Avenger truly is. But what do you say we jump back in the studio and get to the last segment?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Now, if we're going to get back into doing Countdown to Infinity War stuff, do you think we should play the bumper again?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we should play the bumper again. We'll play the bumper.
Super cool.
Thank you. I can't get enough of that, man. That was just super cool.
Epic.
I really
It's
dug
the
it.
only word, epic.
All right. So our final segment of the show tonight, we're going to be doing our rating of Thor as an Avenger, as his ranking and standing in the Power Hour of Love community. So I know Kelly Jade went over a lot of this stuff with me here, really helped me put together kind of a comprehensive look at Thor. So let's take a look at that. We'll try to burn through it pretty quick because I know we're already over our hour, but hey, big surprise there. So we're working on our time, guys. Give us a break. So, I mean, if you're not having fun, it wouldn't be running long, but you're having fun.
Exactly.
So. All right, first and foremost, we're going to look at powers and abilities. Now, we've broken this down into 5 different categories. First up, we're going to be talking about his strength. Now, what do you think of Thor's strength, Kelly Jade?
I think that Thor is pretty obviously strong. I might say even the strongest Avenger, except for the fact that Hulk exists. So
Thor, the strongest Avenger. Nope. Invalid.
Hulk, strongest Avenger.
All right, you got me with that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to grab this scene because of the fact that he's, you know...
He does hold his own against Hulk pretty well, though. I mean...
Yeah, considering right here, Hulk should have just mushed him through the ground like he was a railroad spike, you know? But he was able to stop him and keep up. And sure, this wasn't Hulk at his most furious or his most strongest or any way you want to put it. But... He's definitely holding his own against, you know, the big green machine.
He is,
here.
and he's got this what resistance too to
Yes.
like injury, where like he takes a bunch of like direct hits from Hulk, especially in this latest movie, where
Yeah.
anyone else would just like crush them completely, and he's just kind of like, ooh, that hurt.
Yeah, that's definitely our second power category, something I dub his invulnerability, which I think is best summed up by his weaker younger brother, you know, getting the absolute snot pounded him out of the Hulk. And the same thing, more or less, happening to him later, just goes to show
Hulk smash.
what Loki says to Thor is so prominent in the first Avengers movie, where he says, "The humans think us immortal." You know, and it's like, how could you not, seeing something like that happen to them, and they're relatively okay.
It reminds me of, I think this is back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1, where Lady Sif makes an appearance,
Yeah.
and it's with the episode where she's after Lorelai, who is she can make men, you know, do whatever she wants, and
Yes.
so she gets shot out of the plane, and Daisy and Simmons are telling Coulson this, like, oh, we're sorry, she's gone, and he goes, are you kidding? She's Asgardian, she's still up there. And then it shoots to Lady Sif, and she's hanging onto the plane trying to get back in. So just by that, you know, nature of these people are tough, durable.
Yeah.
Even the ones who seem to be kind of
Normal.
as
Yeah.
opposed to gods. So
Yeah. Their physical stature is just beyond us. But that's not even scratching the surface yet. That's only two things. You know, nigh invulnerable, super strength. But Thor's also got the lightning.
Lightning, yes.
Yeah.
That's a pretty epic reveal of how he uses his lightning in the third movie, how he kind of harnesses that power.
Yes.
Really cool. Yeah.
Definitely
Don't
just
give away too many spoilers.
Yeah, we're trying not to. I mean, the DVD comes out tomorrow. We're trying to give it away for someone to see. Meh. But nevertheless, we're going to run into a few things here and there that may just kind of squeak by. So forgive us. But yeah, him using the lightning, I think, is really underused most of the time in the movies. I think anyone who sees the third movie will be pleasantly surprised that it's very much brought to the forefront. But yeah, his ability to control and harness lightning is just awesome, and he's the god of thunder, but it's the lightning that makes the difference.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I didn't realize until kind of a closer watch or rewatch is that, like, it's not only when he's fighting that he can harness this, but like it's in tune to his emotions, because there's a scene in Ragnarok that that's upsetting to him, and you can hear like the clouds roll in, the thunder starts, and Loki's kind of like, you know, chill out, bro, you know. So I think that's cool too. That's a cool aspect of it, where it's in tune with his emotions as well as his fighting ability.
Absolutely. So it's definitely just a wicked great power to have. I mean, it was the only power kind of Storm really used in the X-Men movies, and it was like the best thing, you know? I mean, lightning, bam, of course. So being able to have and control that, super great. Next on the list, though, we've got his virtual agelessness, which I think is summed up best visually by Odin, seen here thousands of years earlier, you know, and he only looks a little younger. He doesn't look like, he's not like 10.
He hasn't aged that much.
Yeah, and I know that you said you have read a lot of stuff regarding their age and how old they really are and stuff.
Yeah, well, Loki says in the Dark World, how he says he went down to rule as a god, and Odin says we're not gods, we're born, we live, we die, and Loki says, well, give or take 5,000 years. And kind of the fan theory is that, well, if the Asgardian lifespan is about 5,000 years, and Loki and Thor were born about 1,000 years ago, that makes them kind of like 17, 18 in human years, you know. So Loki's just going through his rebellious teenage phase, in a very major way. But
now, does that include the like actual when Norse mythology kind of came around? That's the 1,000 years you're talking about, because I think that's older than 1,000 years, right? Isn't Norse mythology a little older than that?
I don't know how old the Norse mythology is, but it's going by like the title card on the first Thor, that the battle where they came to Earth was in like 965.
Okay, so he couldn't possibly have been any younger than that, is basically what they're saying.
Right,
I got you. Okay. No, that's a good point, because they do talk about all that in the movies and in Captain America when they reference how Odin was there earlier. So last but not least, I think probably his best power is his worthiness, man. He is worthy to wield the power of Thor. Not much more you can say than that. He's a good guy. You know?
He's his selflessness, I think. Even when he thinks that he has, because we've talked about his invulnerability and his strength and whatnot. So a lot of times he goes into battle, he knows he has the upper hand. He doesn't have much to lose. But in the first Thor movie, when he gives his life, he has everything to lose, and he still does it anyway. And that shows the kind of person he is. And he's also, he gives Loki, he keeps forgiving Loki over and over again. He wants to be benevolent and whatnot to his people. Just very, worthy of all that entails.
No doubt. He's a good guy. I was going to let you go for it there. You seemed like you were chasing after it, so I was letting you go for it. All right. So encompassing those 5 core powers of Thor, I mean, he's obviously got other skills and things like that, but encompassing those 5 powers, we're definitely giving Thor a 10 out of 10. Like, this guy can bring the thunder, you know? So next up, we have his role in the battle for New York. Now, of course, we're talking about when the Chitauri attack and the culmination of the first Avengers movie. What would you say about his performance in that first movie?
I think that he was definitely vital to that battle, not only because he tries to reason with Loki and tries to, he's kind of the only Avenger who has even any shot of reasoning with Loki and kind of preventing the whole thing in the first place. But also he's on the ground, and he's able to be in more than one place. He's kind of helping on the ground with Captain America and Black Widow, but he can also go up and take on the aliens and things like that. So yeah, he's definitely a vital part of their side.
Absolutely. You know, we see him, like you said, fighting with Cap on the ground, helping out civilians and normal people, the everyday folk that can't fight for themselves, and also helping Hulk take down some of these big monsters whose name I don't know, but these Chitauri aircraft carrier things. Well, I know the Chitauri are like the race, I think.
Yeah.
But this thing, it probably has its own specific name.
Chitauri ship.
Yeah. Did you say it was a Chitauri ship?
I said Chitauri.
In this photo, it kind of looks like
it sounded like, I was like...
It does. You're like the Asian guy from South Park. We're the Chitauri, We're come invade Chitty.
You couldn't just let it go.
No, I couldn't. I'm sorry. So he can take down some of these big monsters. He definitely helps Hulk do it. When Hulk takes that big piece of metal and sticks it in his back, and then Thor pounds it in with the hammer, he's definitely getting kind of a killing blow there. You guys have to forgive me, man. I've been a little sick this week, so... I'm sure that's nice. Yeah.
I should have jumped in and taken over your commentary, but it occurred to me too late. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I'm going to power through it. But definitely, when he brought the lightning to choke the portal, I mean, he blew up 3 or 4 of those things right as they were coming through. I love this scene in the film, how they use the Chrysler building, and it's all steel outside to help channel focus all this lightning. It's just beautiful scene, brilliantly done, really showed the power of the lightning finally in the movie that I had been waiting to see, and it very much satiated that for me, that I was like, yes, that's truly the power of calling the lightning, man. So
absolutely. Yeah, definitely useful there.
Well, all in all, I wouldn't say they couldn't have won without him. Like, it probably would have been sloppy. Maybe a lot more people would have died, but I think they could have pulled it out if he wasn't there.
Probably, I think.
For that case, we're only going to knock him one tiny little point. We're going to give him a 9 because he still kept a lot of people from dying. And like you brought up, it was his connection to Loki, his reasoning with him at both the beginning and kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say reasoning, but him being there at the end.
Yeah.
That really helped them wrap up the situation because, again, they wouldn't have known what to do with Loki if Thor wasn't there, So definitely vital to kind of wrapping up the battle for New York. But moving on to the next category, the assemble category, we're going to see who he brings to the table as far as Avengers, like assembling and bringing them together. Now, we talked about it last time that Hawkeye appeared in the Tales of Suspense number 57, which was technically an Iron Man book. So his first comic appearance was definitely Iron Man related, but he shows up in Thor.
Okay.
Yeah. They never expressly call him Hawkeye or Clint Barton throughout the entire movie. I don't even think he's credited as Hawkeye or Barton. I'm not sure.
I think he's referred in the movie. You mean he's referred to as Barton?
Well,
yeah.
in Thor, I don't believe he is.
Oh, in Thor, no.
Yeah.
No.
So, but he does have that awesome line where he's like, "You better call it, Coulson, because I'm starting to root for this guy." You know, when Thor's busting through the Shield camp trying to get to Mjolnir there. But we decided last time that we would give him half credit for Hawkeye and assembling him, because obviously Hawkeye's like, "Hey, dude, I like what's going on over here." You know, so I guess I shouldn't say half credit, but partial credit, because he debuted in the Thor movie, which I think is really cool.
That works, yeah.
On top of that, the only other real nod we can give him is kind of maybe the emergence of Beta Ray Bill. Like you saw the crazy goat man earlier. What do you think? You think that's his likeness on the side of the Grand Master's palace?
It looks like it, yeah. It makes you wonder what the story is there, how he ended up on the wall of infamy. Maybe.
Well, what's really cool is a lot of people kind of hope that he might make an appearance or maybe take over for Thor if he does decide to be the Odin role, you know, or God forbid, something worse.
Everyone will be safe. Everyone will be okay.
Everyone will be fine.
But sure.
We can't really give him credit for that because he wasn't part of the original 6 for 1, which is really what we're basing the Assemble rating on. And he didn't even become an Avenger later. He's not even actually appeared in film. So it's kind of more like a tentative point.
Yeah, I guess.
So not much of a score as far as assembling goes. We're going to have to give him a 3.
Sorry, Thor.
Kind of a rough score, but you did assemble the bad guy, so hey, that's something. I don't know.
He brought Loki to the table.
Yeah, and there's definitely an element where in the Avengers film, they're talking about why they're making the weapons and stuff like that are based on the Hydra technology and all that stuff. And Nick Fury says, it's because of him. It's because of Thor. So a lot of what's going on in the Avengers does end up being because of Thor.
Yeah, well, his appearance and reveal as a god in the first Thor movie, it meant that they could no longer ignore that there was other alien life out there, and that the Earth would need something to defend itself.
Yeah.
So Thor does bring that very tangible extraterrestrial threat to Earth that prior to his appearance was something that, you know, couldn't be proven or they weren't sure about and things like that. So it makes it very necessary for Earth to acknowledge, yes, there's things out there. We need to protect ourselves. We're not alone.
So as much as we kind of wanted to give him very small points for Hawkeye, 3 kind of seems like a lot of points for just partially recruiting Hawkeye. But we did want to throw in kind of that aspect of like the whole thing really wouldn't have happened in comics or in the MCU if Thor wasn't around, if Thor wasn't a character. So he's definitely getting, you know, a bonus 1.5 or so there just for that.
Definitely vital part of the, yeah.
He's part of the framework.
I got that reference.
But let's look at his overall Avengers score, about his standalone films, about his character development, and what and who Thor embodies on screen. And I mean, let's take a minute to talk about Chris Hemsworth. I mean, he's obviously the titular character. He plays Thor. What do you think of him?
I really like him. What I've seen of him, he seems like a really, you know, kind of stand-up guy. I was actually watching an interview the other day with the women who were in the Ghostbusters movie, and Chris Hemsworth, you know, played a part in the Ghostbusters. And I think it was Melissa McCarthy who was saying she was really hoping that he was a jerk because she wanted there to be something wrong with him. And of course he showed up and he was nice as anything, and he was, you know, funny and whatnot. And at one point he started to sing, and she was just like, just stop. Just no. You're not allowed to be able to sing too on top of everything. So yeah, apparently he's a very great guy, very nice guy.
Yeah, I certainly say that all of the actors who portray the Avengers, man, they all just seem like such good people. They take their time out to do their press interviews, to talk to kids and stuff like that. I mean, we definitely made it a point last countdown episode to talk about Robert Downey Jr. and all he gives back, because, man, that guy truly goes above and beyond as far as like what I see. But yeah, Chris Hemsworth, great dude, great actor. He's really bringing it to the table. And I love how he made a big push for the character to continue to grow in Thor Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. And the fact that that happened and that so much great stuff happened in that film, I think a huge part of its success and everything involving the mythos is all due to Chris Hemsworth. So thanks for the great job you've done with that, man. You've killed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And his willingness to take the character in new direction and you know, really show that growth of the character. Because in the first film, as far as we've talked about his development as a hero, but as a person, he's very, very much kind of like this Shakespearean sort of stiff God type person. And by the third movie, you can see that he has, you know, he's picked up some earthisms, as you would. You could tell that he's really kind of getting more comfortable in his own skin, getting more comfortable with the people that he finds himself surrounded with. And I think that Chris Hemsworth has really good comedic timing too, and kind of just that kind of comedic element that wasn't necessarily as prominent in the first two movies really gave him a chance to shine in the third movie, which I think really contributed to his to the movie's success as well. But
I still think he had delivered and crushed one of the best and funniest lines in the history of the MCU. I know you know what it is. I see your face already, where he's just like, you know, watch your tongue and watch how you speak of a son of Asgard. You know, Loki is a son of Asgard, and watch how you speak of him, or something for the setup.
He's my brother.
Yeah, and he's my brother. You're right. Yeah, and then they, you know, Black Widow's like, well, he killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
I mean, just great line, great delivery, just
great
crushed
delivery,
it,
great line. Oh my God! The first time I saw the Avengers, I laughed so hard at the part.
I remember you were dying laughing, and you turned to me and you said, Joss Whedon wrote that. That's a Joss Whedon. That's totally a Joss Whedon line, man. So that was fun. But yeah, talking about the first Thor movie, this got a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. You know, at the time of airing this here, it's still carrying a 77. I think that's way underrated, man. I think this movie's a really, really, really solid piece. What do you think?
I think it's definitely solid because and it's directed by Kenneth Branagh too, who like his work is really brilliant, and I think
it's very Shakespearean stuff,
very,
you know. So it was fitting,
very kind of. But I think that also what the movie had working against it is the fact that it had to establish this really epic kind of other world.
Yes.
And establish these new characters and have a story altogether. So I can see why not everyone might have taken to it right away, but I don't think that takes away from the quality of the film itself.
Yeah, I would say in terms of world building, like you're saying, that this does an amazing job, you know, especially if you compare it to what's in the comics, kind of the rainbow Bifrost, to what we see on screen, the way Heimdall can open portals, the way he can see what Asgard looks like, what it feels like when you're there. It has this kind of golden yellow tinge to it all the time. I think their world building in that was fantastic. I think it's totally underrated, you know. I think when we hear so much world building being thrown around, especially in the eye of Black Panther, I just wonder why that got so like meh. You know, maybe it was just too fantasy and all that, but you know, it's kind of similar to maybe fantasy stuff we've seen before. But I thought we got a good sense of what Asgard was, even in that first movie.
I think so, yeah. It was very much kind of this golden city and this golden, you know, whole epic realm that they were inhabiting.
Yeah, but they like to fight, and they were kind of Viking people and everything like that. I guess they didn't show us a lot of like the inner workings of the city, like we got more of in the Dark World and you know, in Ragnarok and stuff like that. So you know, there are elements of that, but I thought it was a great jumping off point. I kind of feel like they're getting cheated on the 77. You know, now Thor: The Dark World, that's holding like at 66.
Yeah.
So I think this would have been my 77. Where I'm like,
I think so. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that the problem with the Dark World is that The threat never seemed to quite take off because they're fighting. Jane has an Infinity Stone, basically.
Yeah.
You know, kind of inside of her that they have to get out, and they're trying to prevent the Dark Elves from getting it. But I think that the villains weren't really.
Their motivation and all wasn't solidified enough.
Yeah.
And it was almost because they wanted to do this reveal of it being an Infinity Stone when they could have just led with that.
Right, exactly.
You know, I don't know if we'd have really been ready to just jump off with an Infinity Stone, because even as so far along the line as Doctor Strange, they really keep it to the last minute to tell you that that's an Infinity Stone. You know? So maybe it would have been a little much, but a clear bit of motivation for the Dark Elves and what was going on. I mean, we kind of got that storybook beginning that told us the history, that exposition, and I don't know, that somehow didn't set the tone. And then just the actual portrayals of the villains were a little bland. So I do think that very much suffers from that villain of the week kind of scenario.
Right.
But the rest of it, I thought really had a lot of great ideas. I think the battle at the end, fighting in different portals, was really great. I thought Loki and his character arc throughout it was really great.
Yeah, it really does introduce a lot of great character arcs, because we see kind of more of the inner workings of the family. We see how Loki has to kind of answer for his crimes. We see the relationship between him and his mother, and just the way that they all relate to one another, how different it is from the first Thor, how the events of the Avengers affect that. And I think too that one of the things that maybe worked against it is that there's a lot more tragedy in this movie, I think, and the characters are portraying their reactions to that, and so it's not like upbeat. It's not. There's a dark tone, a very sad kind of gloomy tone that makes sense when you think of the events that they've gone through.
Yeah.
But maybe might be a turn off to some audiences.
Yeah, it's a bit of an Empire movie.
Yeah, a bit of a downer.
Yeah, a little dark in the middle, but
I think Thor is very, very. I think he's the most somber in this movie than any of the other ones.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think it perfectly set up what we lead into with Ragnarok and why it got its 92%, because it was almost a triumphant victory for the heroes and everything like that. As messed up as things get throughout the course of the movie, there's always this great hope for something better, and I think that is in part what a lot of people want in their escapism, is this hope for a better world and this inspiration to do good and find better things. But I also think that this movie very much captured the very vivid nature of a living comic. So what did you think about Thor Ragnarok?
I really enjoyed it. I think that it's, first of all, it's very funny. We see kind of the culmination, I think as I talked about before, of Thor, and kind of the things he's picked up from being on Earth for a while, and kind of how he's grown as a character and is more accessible. But also the things that he faces, and the characters are all very, like, it's nothing we've seen before in a Thor film. It's very different. It's very kind of hands-on. It's very, very rich in both in tone and color and character. We have this new kind of bond between Thor and Loki, where they're sort of on the same side, kind of not, but they're very much siblings, where they're kind of like sniping at each other. Yeah. And just things like that just made it feel really accessible and really realistic, and it just resounded with people. It was really great.
Yeah, absolutely. That it 92% this has on Rotten Tomatoes. So one of the best reviewed superhero movies ever, man. And I think you're right. I think those undertones or side stories, whatever you want to call it, of the brother, what's my role in the Avengers? What's my role in the galaxy? Like, those are all things that I think all of us wonder all the time. Like, what are we meant for? What are we supposed to do? What relationships should we really cherish? What relationships should we be like, nah, regardless of blood or whatever's actually created those bonds? How do you deal with them? How do you perpetuate them? And I think those are universal themes, and I love that about this movie. But like you said, the growth of Thor himself and of Loki throughout the film, kind of finding this brotherly love that we never actually saw on screen beforehand, but for 15-20 minutes at the beginning of the first Thor,
right?
And then we're kind of getting back to it now and really seeing it flesh out, but also seeing them both understand that this is a right now sort of thing, and
it's kind of like a truce. It's temporary. They still have a lot of things to deal with, and we still can never quite trust Loki. As shown in the Infinity War trailer, but at the same time,
we don't know. He could be handing it to Thor. You don't know.
He's totally fine. Everything's okay. But no, it does have that palpable kind of temporariness to it, but at the same time, it's,
Well, I think ultimately, his progression, Loki's progression, everything about those films really shows us within the 3 movies that he's learned how to be a king, how to be humble, how to be a good man. He always forgives his brother. He always forgives Loki, man. I mean, it may sound silly, but nothing spoke to me more than in the Avengers film when they're on the cliffside. Loki's even kind of taunting him. He threw me off the Bifrost. Did you even cry for me? And he grabs him by the face and is like, yeah, dude, we all mourn for you. You're my brother. I don't care that you're, not Odin's son directly. Thor doesn't care. He still's like, dude, you're still a good dude. The Warriors 3, Lady Sif, I'd treat any of them exactly the same way, because to him it's like his friends or his family. And I love that. Right, I think that's a great character
trait.
Yes. Thank you. But he knows what it's like to lose, to suffer loss, to have things go not right all the time. You get some of those up and downs in Ragnarok that you're like, man, he's taking them on the chin, and I think overall, his willingness to always defend Midgard, even from his brother, whom he super, super loves,
right?
Really, to me, gives him an outstanding Avenger score. That he's the epitome of what Robert Downey Jr. said, that if he cannot save Midgard, you'll be damn sure he'll avenge it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
he's Earth's protector. He's Earth's guardian.
And for that reason, always forgives his brother. I was supposed to show that clip. But we gave him a 10 out of 10 on his Avenger score because I feel like he'd always protect us tooth and nail from, enemies within and abroad kind of thing, So big ups on the Avenger score. But other than that, we've only got our couple of scores to run through. So real quick for me, El Bandito's score, what do you think?
10?
I'm going to give him a 9. I'm going to give him a 9. I know. Look at the look you gave me. I just talked him up so much. I gave him a 9. I gave Cap a 10, man. Cap's my guy, right? I still think that there's a lot of what Thor is doing that's for Thor, and he's overcome a lot of that. And yes, he's always there for us and stuff like that. But there is that element of he's oftentimes falls into that trap of doing something for him while he's doing things for the greater good. So I'll shave 1 point for sometimes being exactly like me, which is like looking out for numero uno first.
Hey, nobody's perfect, I guess.
But some are so close it's scary. So. I mean Thor, not me. You're looking at me like you ain't perfect. All right, so we're going to go with Kelly Jade's score. So, Kelly Jade, what do you think of the God of Thunder?
I mean, well, there was that whole thing where all that he brought into the MCU was Hawkeye and only kind of there, so I think that factored into it, but I'm joking. I think he deserves a 10 because as like all the things we mentioned, he's grown as a character. He's he's looking out for the little guy. He's got compassion, sympathy. It's very strong. All the things you need in a superhero.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, it pains me to give him a 9, but I have to give people kind of different scores. I can't just give everybody a 10 all the time.
I can.
You definitely can, because you're a guest and you can do whatever the hell you want on the show.
Exactly.
But right now, we need all of your guys' help out there to go ahead and throw in your listener score. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We hope you guys had a lot of fun. We hope you learned some stuff about Thor. We hope you guys are pumped to run out tomorrow and grab yourself a copy of Thor Ragnarok on Blu-ray. Check it out. Complete the trilogy. I know Trek Life 53, Justin K, you won't have to, man. You're going to get one in the mail in just a couple days because he was the winner of our raffle. So congratulations again to him. If you guys like Thor, if you want to give him a bonus point for my lack of points, if you want to bump my 9 to a 10, just throw down in the comments that you love Thor. Say anything you want. Thor, blah, 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 love. I love Loki more than Thor. It'll have love and Thor in the same sentence, and we will count that as a vote for Thor. Also, you can visit our YouTube page and vote and leave comments there for both Iron Man and Captain America. If you want to leave votes for Captain America and Iron Man in this comment chain, you can too. That's fine. But we will put a link up later so that you can check out all of these videos. And I think we are going to put a poll up. We'll work on that in the next few days. We'll get a poll up so you can go to our Facebook page and go and vote for your favorite, most loved Avenger right then and there. And feel free to vote for the same Avenger more than once, to vote for more than one Avenger. You don't have to just pick one. We're going to tally up all the votes in the end. But thank you guys so much for that. Thank you guys for sticking with us tonight. We've had a super ton of fun. Kelly Jade, I thank you so much for coming in and filling Charboil's seat. I have to agree with the amazing Brando who put it mildly. You're a lot better looking to look at for an hour than Charboil. But he's off having a ton of fun for his birthday. So once again, we hope he has a great time and a safe return for him next week. And we are going to have a lot of fun right here next Monday at 9 p.m. Very soon, we are also going to be doing the rest of our Infinity War countdown. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, you have any final words for the beautiful people out there?
Join my prayer circle for Loki in Infinity War, and also that for everyone else too, but mostly Loki, that they're all going to be okay and on the side of good, and that nothing bad will happen.
Do we get to hold hands for the prayer stuff?
In spirit, yeah. The more people who are involved in the prayer circle, the better it'll be.
I want to hold your hand. You're like, me too, man, me too. Get off. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you next week, Monday at 9 p.m., or jump over to our YouTube page. You can check out all of our past videos, including another awesome video with Kelly Jade where we talked about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Have a good night, guys. We'll catch you next time.